Greetings, Molly. Here is your Art 828 Creative Photography final critique. And looking at this work, I see lots of photographs that utilize, so many of the design principles. There's repetition, there's movement, nice use of balance, in a sense, symmetry, but also playing with the asymmetry of those areas. I do get a sense of place, and I think that's what you're shooting for, looking at Lincoln, a place that's sort of a new home for you, and trying to explore that. And I think you really have explored street photography very well, and it can be a challenging sort of genre, because it requires an investment in time and exploration, which for many of us, myself included, can be a lot of fun. But it certainly can take a lot of time to hunt and find these images, and then editing, shooting, and editing. And I think I see that in this work. You have explored a lot, shot a lot, edited a lot, and found some good images. So this one feels more cultural. There's a nice composition of the people, the movement of the road, the buildings to this sort of one-point perspective. Here, I like this little girl moving across here. She kind of makes the photographs. I'm kind of looking at everyone else's back, but I do see her moving, and that kind of, that helps. Otherwise, it could be a little more of a, in a sense, a bland image. Not poorly composed, but nothing really grabbing me. And that's the thing with street photography, is how do you find that element that really grabs me? This grabs me. I don't know if it quite, makes it a great photograph, but it certainly makes me look and contemplate. This image is one of subtlety, and I like how we have, all these buildings, and it looks just like a street, but we get this lone, singular biker on the street. And, all the other indications are that there's people around. It's a busy time of year, but I can't really pull out any other individual. I think there are some other individuals in there, but that one really stands out. And that's, a nice eye. Good job in finding that. We have iconic elements here, the Capitol, and, downtown. Well, to me, I don't know Lincoln that well. It feels very towny. And then that singular biker on there. I do think we need to square up your horizon line on this image. It is just a bit tilted, just a degree or maybe two clockwise. Would fix that. I really love this image. I love the objective. We get the sense of objective, seeing a person in pants and shoes, the real person. And then we have these implied people in their shadows. So there's a really nice play of abstraction and sort of degrees of abstraction. These are really abstract forms of humans. This is fairly naturalistic, except we're only given the calves and the feet, which cuts out the rest of the human, any sort of identifying thing. So there's an abstraction in that form in and of itself. And then the juxtaposition of those two makes a really nice and wonderful photograph to look at and contemplate and move around and think and get a sense of all these people. But we're just focusing on the one, but we do have the shadow residue of at least three others. I guess four, you count the shadow of that individual themselves. So, that's really quite a nice photograph and a nice moment you found. And that's what street photography is about finding those moments that really, can pop and make us consider. This is an interesting, well-composed image. I would consider it more of a bridge image. It's hard for every single image in a portfolio to be just gobsmacking great. And this one's good, but it doesn't great. I don't know what it's lacking, or maybe someone else perhaps would find it great. And that can be the beauty of things, is one person can look at it and be like, that's all right. Another person can just be blown away by it. And I guess to me that's actually a stronger indication of a stronger body of work, where a variety of images really strike people, as opposed to just one photograph that's great and then the rest are supporting it. I like this image. This image to me has a bit more of that, wow factor where I have to think and consider. And it's an image I would, I look at the New Landscape Photography group on Facebook. I belong to that group and look at it. And I think a lot about that group. I think a lot about the work that they're doing is interesting, but I also think about, for me, is it doing anything more than Adams did in the 1970s. Adams, Frank Golke, Robert Adams, not Ansel, Robert Adams, Frank Golke, with the new topographics exhibition they had in the early 1970s, where they really took this art photography from like Ansel Adams and those other modernists and made us consider the human element, because so often there was a negation of the human element or a abstraction of it into the beautiful, where they refused to transform all these human incursions into our environment and present them as beautiful. They presented them as sort of disruptions, if you will, or perversions, perhaps. And so I kind of like this image. It fits in that new landscape photography. I love the symmetry that you've created in the image. And I love that I have an asymmetry, something completely different is going on over here. Different textures, different light, different contrasts. Now I have glass, and it's dark, and it's more smooth, and here it's rougher, and it's lit, and it's high so there's a really nice balance between these two halves. And then, of course, that path. It's easy to follow a path up. Look at this image. It really does make me want to consider, what is she so expressive about? Her hands are moving, and it seems like they're talking, and she's engaged with something, ideas, and I want to know what it is, of course, but it's just a still photograph. I don't have a way to gather that information unless I myself were the photographer. Then I might get some sense of that, but I don't, just being a viewer. So I think there's a nice playfulness in that. And I also, for some reason, really like this shadow that sticks out here. It just like pops out and points right back to the viewer, like her looking this way, her hands pushing me. I consider all this, I look at this figure, and then that thing just pushes me right back to her, further emphasizing it and further making me want to consider what she is doing and what she is talking about. I think you take that shadow out, it weakens the image. This is, I think, in some ways a compelling photograph, because you are forcing me to look at nothing. You're making me look at the sky and all this blue. And it's funny, all this stuff down here where there's real textures and messages and objective things just seem to be supporting things, just because they're all pushed way down at the bottom and have all this blue space. And that seems what you demand me to consider, that space. At the same time, you give me some of this information, and that causes a tension. And I think it's a good tension in the viewer. Nice composition. I almost want, like, this is one that sort of shifts me away from culture, shifts me away from the city, shifts me away from, in a sense, the objective, and just demands a look. Almost, it feels like a collage. It feels like such a collage. And I actually want to push that feel a little bit further. Like if I just crop the left quarter out right here, right down the middle of this nose, and then I get rid of those overt text words, and that face I'm just getting a little bit about. I really like it as I look at that, because it just feels like a collage of things as opposed to a photograph. So it's like this collage of this city, and I like the feel of that. And you still have most of that here, but I think there's just a little too much of the image over here, and you can push that feel more if you want to, though. I don't know that you have to. This is a nice photograph, high contrast, that the converging parallel lines, the reflections, and then the real things, the reflections. Reflections are so often a wonderful abstraction of the more objective elements. So it has this nice play, and I kind of like this border of this really heavy dark around it. And I like that there's some variety in it. It's not just black, but there's really nice, lovely, lush values and textures up here that fade out into something more black. So it kind of frames this image. There's so much going on here, it helps. A lot of nice lines here. We have this moving here. Of course, we have the road closed, which plays with us. We have these power lines here. We have these lines here. So we have this one-point perspective, but we also have this another perspective that pushes me off the frame. There's a good tension between those two. And then, of course, there's a tension when we have this road closed, telling me I can't go here, which is an anomaly typically, you know, because if there's a road there, you should be able to go there, but it says road closed. So there's a lot of nice tension both in the composition of the image, but also in the overt literal messages in the image, the words. See, this is an image that just, you know, makes me laugh. And it feels like an iconic street photography image. It just makes me see something and consider something I just didn't think about before, and really makes me see it in new ways. So, and of course, the big thing is the text, the words. Now, you know, in cities, there's often signage, and to play with that, it can become a very important element in street photography. And just leaving me with the word "the," you know, is so funny. It's this incomplete sentence. It's poor grammatically, but it also makes me want to fill it in with other things. The cloud, the tree, the sky, you know. There's a wonderful ambiguity to it. And as Sally Mann said in her video, without ambiguity, why bother? And that's what I think that you're looking for in street photography. You're looking at such an objective environment that you want to make them question that, and to make them question that, you have to get them to that point where it becomes unrecognizable or incongruent with their beliefs about the place, or, you know, something else. You got to make them question, and just leaving me with the word "the." And also, it's nicely composed. You know, you have these nice angles, triangular, diagonal forms, the hard edge, rectangular, and the human-made versus the organic objects over here. My one criticism technically is I'd like it just a little more texture in that cloud. You know, I want to select that cloud, and I want to pull down, you know, some more variety in there and a little more density to it. And I think it would help strengthen me and make me consider more the cloud versus the sky or the tree, or more equally consider those things, because I like the ambiguity of what the leads me to. So that's a fun image. I would play with it a little bit more. Just, you know, if you locally select even just this interior of the sky, feather it 20, 40, 50 pixels, and then just go and play with the curves and do that. You could maybe, you know, pull out some information. Maybe I'll try and do that here. Okay, but let's move on for the moment. And you know, I love the repetition of the hands and the space and the inclusion of the human figure and the light and the tables. Just so much repetition, rhythm, movement, abstract versus, you know, objective versus subjective elements. Your composition contains these hands, but then we have this human element, so then playing with scale. You know, there's so many little details in there. It's well done, well thought out. You know, this image has a very different view. You actually do a pretty good job of mixing up the color in black and white. I'm usually a little wary of mixing those two sort of formats in a body of work, but I think you found a nice balance between them, as well as the number of images and your ordering of them creates a nice sort of push and pull, and that can be challenging to find at times. And there's nice lights, and I look at this, and the parking garage, and I like how the parking garage almost functions as these eyes looking out into the landscape. Makes me want to take a parking garage and transform it into a pinhole camera. Anyways, so yeah, that's nice look and thought and perspective. Sorry, my mind's moving. I'm getting focused. Here you really push the contrast, and I think that helps the scene. You know, it helps it elevate it just a little bit more from that everydayness of our nice, you know, mid-tone value range experience. And I see all the organic shapes and shadows and trees and the push and pull, that high contrast, the light out here, the dark here, and the nice mid-tone here. You know, this is, I think, in a color, I don't think I'd like this image, or even just your average, making it grayscale, black and white image. I don't think I like how you push the contrast of it. It challenges me and adds, you know, some degree of ambiguity and abstraction to that image. And this is, again, another nice play on balance. Your color scheme, you have like this, you found this complementary color scheme. That can be so challenging in photography to deal with color, because so rarely does our world organize itself in these nice harmonious color schemes. But here you found one. You've got red and green, essentially. I really struggle to find other colors outside of the red and green. So I have this wonderful complementary color scheme with very complex saturations of these two colors and values of these two colors. You know, and there's just a nice push and pull between these things as far as the rectilinear, the curvilinear, the green, and the red, the higher contrast, the somewhat lower contrast, you know, and then back here you have some nice more neutral elements supporting all this. Very wonderfully composed image. I'm a little less engaged with this one. It seems much more about the design on the building as opposed to the photographic interaction of that design with other elements. So I guess that's where this one falls short for me. You know, I'm looking at this. I'm not connecting it to anything else photographically on the image. So I guess in my mind that makes it a weaker image. That was a wonderful mural. And, you know, then we have our sort of obligatory photograph of the Capitol, but it's a nice photograph. I love how this line just shoots through it, and this tree, it almost feels like an infrared black and white photographic image. And the sky has this lovely gray too. It's a beautiful photograph. It's a nice image. To me, it lacks a little bit of that punch and that ambiguity that I want in some of those. It feels like a postcard. If you want a postcard, great image. If you want to challenge a viewer, I don't know, it's beautiful, it's pretty, but I don't know that challenges me. You know, look at this image. I like the figure and how they interact with the road closed sign, but it just makes me think so much about that other image with the road closed sign, and I think I like the other one a little bit better. But I like the human element in here too. I don't know. It's worth including. And someone else might react to it more positively. Here again, another nicely composed image and element. And it starts bringing me to start considering the bigger picture of your body of work. What is its power and impact in, and where does it fit in today's contemporary art world, contemporary photography world? Is it just, you know, contemporary street photography, or does it push beyond that and say something more philosophical about things? You know, you reference in your artist statement, you reference Lee Friedlander and his photograph of New York City in 1963 and how it captures that social landscape of America in a sense. And here you're focusing on Lincoln, you know, a smaller U.S. city. I don't even know where it ranks in population, but it's probably not even in the top 100. And, you know, so New York is like that icon of America in so many ways, you know, just New York, and it says America, and it says finance, and it says power, and it says wealth, you know. And we're looking at Lincoln. And so, and it also makes me, you know, the whole body kind of makes me consider the idea of taking street photography in Lincoln. And what does that say? What is it about? How is there a message that can resonate through America? And, you know, we look at where we are, and there's this, you know, we appreciate in some ways the small and the rural and the everyday folk, as opposed to, you know, New York can be seen as wealth, elitism, and wealth in money, but also wealth in culture, quote unquote, and art, and music, and opera, you know, all these very high cultured elements, and can in many ways be disconnected from the rest of America. Where a city like Lincoln is a capital city, and, you know, it's a couple 100,000, maybe 250,000 people, you know, so it's not a huge city, and it's surrounded by the rural farms. So in many ways Lincoln is connected to that rural, you know, and so it does kind of fit in you know, we look at the dynamics of the last election, and what sort of carried that election was the push of the more rural folks for President Trump. And, you know, so it's interesting to look at that and to connect that and think about these different time frames and the different messages, and thinking about art and large scale images. I didn't really say anything specifically per se about this image, but it is really nice photograph. Again, you have a nice complementary color scheme, red and the green and the lines, and how you break it up with this grid. It is a really wonderful photograph. I think I made comments of that earlier. This is nice too. Good job with the exposure. This can be really, really, really challenging. I think you did a good job in selecting. You are exposing for the interior, for the details on this individual and this stuff over here, and letting that stuff blow out, and it adds such a nice boom. This feels like a Gary Winogrand photograph to me. That might be another photographer to look at if you haven't looked at him already. Gary Winogrand. His images he just finds such bizarre moments, and they're so wonderful. And so he offers a lot of ambiguity for the viewer, but it's nice, and it does feel a little bit staged, like she's looking back right at the camera in awareness and smiling, so it feels a little staged. It'd almost be better if she were looking at you like angry. That'd have more tension and add more to the image. But it is a nice photograph. And this is the last one, and this is a nice photograph. I think I talked about this earlier. I don't know if I commented on it, but I think I was, good use of depth, feel, all those things. The camera, fits well in the portfolio. So in the end, I think you've done a good job here, Molly. Showing us, Lincoln in a sort of way that I think most people aren't looking at it, and I think that's a good thing. It feels very big city-ish in your photographs. And it is big city, but it's not like going to Omaha or Chicago or New York, so it's kind of interesting in that regard. So, all right, anyways, well done. Hopefully you got something out of the class. If you have any questions, let me know.